Howdy, my name's Kyle from Vaughn Raceworks, and today I'll be showing you how to use the Map9, the anti-lag functionality on your 4-liter DS1 powered vehicle. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. Alrighty, so as always, we're going to start up our Tuner Pro RT. Open up our bin here. I am lucky enough to have quite a selection of our demo cars files here. We have this demo bin here specifically for showing you guys how it all works. We'll go in here to our flex fuel map switching down to map 9. And we're going to start on our base ignition maps. Now, what these are going to do is these are what are targeting the specific ignition angles during our, in this instance, anti-lag event. So we're going to set these to -30, and the reason I go 2500 to 7000 from 10% load all the way to 220 is anything below 2500 you're going to start running into some weird drivability issues during cruise control. So if you're trying to decrease your speed on cruise control, you're pushing the stock down. That's the same way you actually enable this map temporarily. If you are using cruise control, you're going to be switching into this map a few times if you're doing that, and most of the time I wouldn't imagine anybody to be above 2500 RPM during cruise control. With the gear ratios on all of the 4-liter cars, you'd have to be doing at least 95, and cruise control doesn't work above 95 anyway, so this is all kind of works together really well. The other thing is anti-lag beneath 2500 RPM, a little goofy. You start bending rods, start breaking things if it's anywhere beneath that. So we like to stay nice and safe and keep it above 2500. And the reason I say -30 is because with -30 degrees of timing, it's enough timing after top dead center to essentially start that combustion process and push it out of the exhaust port through the exhaust manifold, where it burns some extra fuel and combines with that air and essentially creates a nice charge towards the turbine side of the turbos. So -30 is just kind of that magic number that works. You can play with this a little more if you'd like. -30 is really kind of the limit, I would say. It's quite aggressive. You can start with -20 and kind of go up from there. There is a PI function to this, so a portional and integral kind of closed loop control. So we could play with that as we should, but we'll start by controlling all of these, get these all to -30. Alright, and last but not least, our last table here. Oops. Alright. So now that we are commanding -30 degrees of timing, our next table to be looking at is this wastegate duty cycle direct. This is the same as all of these other maps, where you can essentially command how much wastegate duty cycle you want for specified RPM and boost target. Now, with this, because we're igniting fuel and air in the exhaust manifold, we're creating a combustion charge outside of the combustion chamber. The reason that this is a much lower value is because we have all of that, it's called exhaust power, coming into the manifold all by itself. It's not getting wasted for reciprocating the piston up and down. So all of this is going straight to the turbine, which means that your wastegate doesn't have to work as hard to push all of that air charge all of that exhaust gas through the turbine. It can bypass some of it and still have plenty to keep the turbines nice and spooled up. So this stock calibration here from DynoSpectrum, I believe the stage 3 map is what this is a little based on, works perfectly fine with this. So you can play with that a little more if you need to, but this, like I said, works excellent. Next one will be our torque maps. So one thing I like to do here is set 2500 and beyond to 200%. Now all that's going to do is just keep you from exceeding 200% load, but it'll also help you in those higher RPMs with making sure your load stays consistent and you don't hit any barriers. So we will keep that like that, and you can do the same thing for your ethanol tables. Beware that if you do not have high pressure fuel pumps on some of these vehicles, you might run into some fuel starvation issues, so be a little careful with that. Alright, and our next map we will be playing around with. So this max compression ratio, this is a compressor safety map, and essentially what this is going to do, this is what we can limit the pressure ratio of our compressor with. It'll close the throttle if we exceed this amount at all. So these stock values, plenty high for our application here with these GTX 3071s. You can raise these if you're on like a single turbo setup, or if you just want to go balls to the wall with this. Be careful, because stock turbos are known to start falling apart around this pressure ratio range. But if you're on like a TS1 or a TS2, maybe some Zonas, or even if you're going crazy on a single like a Pulsar, like a G42 or something, you can play with these and hike it up way higher than this. But for the sake of this video, this is more than perfect. This is what I use on my personal vehicle as well, so we'll keep these as is. And same for the ethanol side, works perfect, not a big deal. The next one, our minimum ignition angle. This is going to limit the minimum amount of ignition timing that this map can request. So because we're requesting for -30, that table will reference this table, and this is essentially a safety. So the ECU cannot go beneath these values here. So what we can do to make sure that the ECU can get to those values is we're going to actually add in a 5-degree allowance as well for that boost control PI controller. Essentially to give the ECU some variance, where if it needs to take away more timing to stay at a certain RPM, it can do that. And then obviously it can go the other way as well. So we will save that, and we have 4 of these as well. -35. And those are all the same load areas as well. And perfect. Alrighty, so with the easy part out of the way, now we have some of our more intricate portions of getting this calibration dialed in. So beneath the map switch table here, we have a couple different things. So mask of map switch is able to switch to Temp Map. This is going to be a bit mask for the temporary map, so map 9, of what maps will allow us to enter this temporary map. So on my personal calibration, I have a hex of 8F. Now what does that mean? Now this 8F is a a hex function of this bit mask. So this bit mask is this function here, this binary string, representing the mask of maps that we can and can't select. Now you can't select map 8 at all. That's just it's a function limitation since this is an 8-bit table. This is just unfortunately how it works. Anyways, so this first function, because it's a signed function, is going to be representative of our map 7. And map 7 is going to be our no start. And I just have this here for kind of functionality's sake to kind of show how it all works, since zeros are essentially nothing in binary format. So 1, if we wanted to have our map 7 enabled, 0, 0, 0, so we're not going to have anti-lag on our valet map, our stock map, or our maximum cooling map, but we will have it enabled. This 1 is essentially a Boolean code for a yes. So on our 104, 100, 93, and 91 octane maps, that's what these 4 bits represent. Next up are max time and temporary map switch. So what this means is this is the maximum amount of time that we can spend in this temporary map. So I personally do 4,000 milliseconds or 4 seconds. Reason for this is if you have prolonged amounts of time in this map switch, you can essentially create a buildup of EGT, start melting things, start breaking things. Not a good time. The other reason, and this is for just my own safety that I like to keep for other people, that not a lot of people really think about, is if you have some sort of switch failure with the cruise control stock, you don't want to be stuck in this map. It is very easy to start breaking things in this map if you are not careful with it, or if you have a failure like this that restricts you to it. So let's say you're cruising down the freeway and you click your cruise control stock for one last time to go down to 70 mile an hour. It'll all be fine because we have our cruise control stock set, our temporary map set to that 2500 RPM threshold. So that's safety portion number 1. Number 2 is, let's say you're hitting anti-lag to try and do a roll race against your buddy in Mexico. Let's say that's the last throw that switch ever gave. Now you're stuck in anti-lag at 4.5, 5,000 RPM. Your car is now going to be stuck in this mode of operation if you didn't have this map switch limit, time limit. So this essentially just keeps us from having any of those issues. Now I know that's very hypothetical, it's semi out of reach, but these things do happen, so there's a reason that we have these on here. The ignition gain ALS. This is a very important table. This is essentially going to control the overall sensitivity of your anti-lag system. So what I like to set this to, now there's a couple different variables that we could do. For a really, really aggressive controlled anti-lag feel, we could do negative 0.025. Now what does this look like? Negative 0.025. Now the reason for this, it's negative 0.025 degrees of ignition retardation per RPM of error. So if you are 100 RPM out of error, it's going to command negative 2.5 degrees. Now we could do this to negative 0.015, and this is what DynoSpectrum themselves have tested with. I like it. It's a little bit on the softer side for me, which is great if you want to keep a lot of the OEM feel of your car. But for kind of guys who like the raw feel of the car, like RS guys, or really anybody that just wants that feeling and really want to keep it just locked to that RPM, doesn't allow really any tolerance, this is the way to do that. So negative 0.25, or sorry, negative 0.025. Our minimum ignition adjustment anti-lag system. This is the most amount of timing it can pull while it's in this anti-lag logic. So we can command a maximum of negative 15 degrees is what I like to do. And then we can do a maximum adjustment of 15 degrees. So if we hit our anti-lag at 4,000 RPM, let's say that we go up to 4,200 RPM, this minimum adjustment one will pull some timing all the way up to negative 15 degrees. And our maximum, let's say that we start undershooting it, so we start losing RPM, we go to 3,800, it'll start giving us some timing back into really that master map, our base ignition map here. And so the one issue that people might be asking about with this ignition map is, well, you have it set to negative 30, but your limit is negative 35. Where's that at? Right here. Your limit's negative 35. So how are you going to pull out negative 15? That's a maximum, I guess, number value that we can target. You should not need to target anything over about negative 3 or 4 degrees to hold that RPM, no matter what system you're on. This is just to keep the PI controller nice and happy, because there are events where you will lose too much RPM, like if you're in a much higher gear and you have some aerodynamic drag, some driveline drag, where you do have to, where the car will have to add some timing. This just keeps the PI controller nice and happy, so they're nice and equal. You won't ever hit this number unless somehow you do. Then please shoot me a comment. That would be awesome. So let's make sure that we save these. Boom, boom. All right. So let's hop on over to our DynoSpectrum logger and start looking at this log that we have taken. So this is going to be just a neutral anti-lag activation. This was just outside in the parking lot. So a couple different things. I have actual log viewer presets made specifically for each step of tuning. So that's always going to be fueling, torque reduction, or torque changes, airflow, ALS optimization. So in this case, some values over here on the right. We've got our engine speed, gearbox oil temp, our gear, our throttle, our coolant temp, and then sport mode active in this first cell. And essentially what that's just doing is just giving us some basic info. Engine speed, so we can reference what our active engine speed is, and then our gearbox oil temp, so that whenever we come off of anti-lag, if we're having a slip event where we're creating some heat, it's not good and we would have to nip that in the butt somehow. What gear it is for that gearbox oil temp thing, and then the throttle input, just to tell you, okay, well, I'm at 100% throttle during this anti-lag event, so everything's going good there. I should be targeting my maximum boost. And then coolant temp, just to reference how the engine's doing with the heat that it's creating, and then sport mode being active, again, for the transmission. Beneath that, we have the cruise control stock. That's the actual CAN bus bit message. Same with the map switch, so that's what map is actively engaged on the ECU. Temp Map entry RPM, that's the RPM of which it is targeting with that anti-lag control system, closed loop system. And then ignition adjust ALS, that's the true ignition adjustment. See that as like the feedback controller that it is targeting to try and get back to that entry RPM. And then ignition actual, or act, is just going to be the true ignition timing variable. Beneath that, we just have some air information, so how much pressure we have in the manifold, how much pressure we have before the throttle, the temperature of said air, and then things like how much boost the ECU is actually targeting. And then beneath that, we have our wastegate duty cycle and some things with that. And then wheel slip for monitoring whenever you're launching from that anti-lag roll or dig or whatever it is, just to see how much wheel slip we have. That way you could dial it back or dial it forward, however you need to do that. So first things first, let's see what we are doing. So we have engaged 100% throttle right here. Our map entry RPM is 3408, and we are right around, looks like 33 to 3460, so perfect there. And then we don't have any sort of anomalies at all. You can see with this blue graph in the middle here, that's actually our ignition adjustment for that anti-lag logic. So you'll see that, we're taking away 1.5 degrees, up 2.5 there, and it's just kind of floating around to keep that RPM feedback controller happy. And then down on the lower side, middle graph, you could see our target manifold pressure and my poor manifold not being able to handle that pressure. We've got a stupid little leak on the O-rings, so we're only getting about 2 bar of boost of the 2.4, 2.4.5 that the car is wanting, but needless to say, still working great. I could have turned up the wastegate actuator. And then on the bottom you see that our wastegate actuator is about 46-47%, and that's just for 2 bar. If you saw a log of this car under regular watt operation, totally different thing. 100% wastegate duty cycle, and it only gets about 2.3, 2.5 bar. So some weird little issues, anomalies that we have to work through on the demo, but that's all for a later video. So looks like everything is very happy here. We are targeting our map entry correctly. Everything looks all spick and span. Negative 33 degrees. We're not hitting that threshold of negative 35, so that's perfect as well. We are seeing our cruise control stock being activated. That's our bitwise number there, so you'll notice when I come off of it, it goes back to 0. And our map switch is set to 9, our temporary map. And when we come off, it goes back to the map 0, the one that I was on before. And everything looks amazing. So I hope you guys learned something excellent from this, and hopefully you can apply this on your own vehicle. Whether it's your 2.5 Daza, it has the same functionality, or the 4-liter. These are all applicable to both of those classes of vehicle, those different engines, and it's a really, really great feature that I think can be used way more than I really see. So hopefully you guys took something home from this and play around with this. Shoot me some comments. Tell me what you guys figured out, and what your maximum boost was, or what your 60 to 130 times are with this versus without it. I know on mine we shaved off a solid, I think it was 0.8 or 1.1 seconds or something like that, and the quarter mile we shaved off on just a launch, just stalling the converter and then having this come in. We saw something like, I believe it was a point, I think it was 0.4 of a second difference on our 60 foot. We're doing 1.9 60 foots, and then added in this launch control, and we changed that to about a 1.4, 1.5. So it's been absolutely excellent, and I think everybody should use this. Alrighty, well, if you guys enjoyed this, please feel free to give us a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see some more tutorials like this for the DS1, the 4-liter, the 2.5, why don't you subscribe? It would help us out a lot. It would let us know that you absolutely enjoy this type of content and want to learn some more about these excellent engines and this excellent product that DynoSpectrum has made. But without further ado, I'm going to get back to making some other tutorials for you guys. As always, thank you for tuning in. I'll catch you later.